Captive audience, it is the 13th of February, and normally David and I would be on tonight. I'm very pleased for the first time since November 3rd that Sonny Danforth and I are going to be on. But David is recuperating. And we hope he gets better soon because obviously he's a big part of the team, and we really want. And so, you know what? It is always smart to pray. It is always smart to pray.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. David is in our prayers and getting well.
Absolutely.
Prayers.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. And sorry, go ahead. What were you going to say, Sonny?
Go ahead.
Well, and he's probably going to watch us because he's got time to sit back and watch us every once in a while as he's getting better. So we'll keep it interesting for you, David. I promise. I don't know if we can match your level of humor that you introduce into these shows, but we're going to try. So, but I wish all the topics are humorous, but maybe the first one should at least give people a tad bit of a giggle. It was breaking news last night, and I mentioned it when we had Dave Huguenot on, and but the story continues to reverberate today. So in the 4th district, Oregon incumbent Congresswoman Val Hoyle just had all of her records at the Bureau of Labor and Industry relating to Lamoda, the marijuana company that brought down Shamia Fagan, and everything relating to this grant that Val Hoyle specifically pushed through on their behalf. All of that's been subpoenaed by the feds, who were already investigating Lamoda and Shamia Fagan. So effectively, they've now added Val Hoyle to this, and that's a big deal. If you're running for re-election and the feds expand their investigation to include you, I can imagine the curses coming out of Val Hoyle's mouth right now, but she deserves it because she's the one who not only took these actions, but for 11 months withheld her text messages from the Bureau of Labor and Industry that she used to conduct public business on her private phone. And some of those text messages still have not been turned in, which means that this subpoena doesn't say supply us with the information that you like. It says supply us with everything, all communications.
That's fabulous news. I'll tell you what, there is no, she is not going to be able to buffalo a federal agency, I do not believe. I pray anyway, of trying to, we'll just go through and give you what you want. You know, she is not Hillary Clinton. Okay. She is like a lowest person on the totem pole. And with her shenanigans of what she did in the state of California, and now she's in a federal office. So this is fabulous news. The investigation into Val Hoyle. I kid you not.
And the jig is up because now she has to turn in all of the information that is required. And they're looking at this because it stinks to high heaven. And the candidate who is running to unseat her in the 4th congressional district, Monique Despain, put out a press release applauding this news and that the feds have expanded the investigation, and noted something. On January 24th, Monique Despain held a press conference. I know because I was present at this press conference, in which they launched a website called whatsvalhiding.com. And she announced that she had sent a letter to the U.S. Attorney for the District of Oregon, Natalie K. White, calling on Ms. White to expand her investigation to include Val Hoyle and her activities. Now, I don't want to raise the expectation that when Republicans running for office send letters to U.S. attorneys calling for Democrats to be investigated, that stuff just happens all the time. But 5 days after that press conference, they issued the subpoena, and it took 2 more weeks for that to sort of leak out because
that's awesome. That's awesome. But you know, there had to be something there in order for them to truly launch an investigation. This was not just a rumor. You know, this was what she was trying to hide from even the citizens of Oregon. So, you know, that's great.
Yeah, and that was actually the point that Monique made, because when you so there's that website, what'svalhiding.com. If you go and look at that, it's a chronology that takes all of the news reports that have taken place about Val Hoyle, LaMotta, and this grant,
Mhm.
and just lays it out. And when you read it, you're like, wow, this reads like, a statement that a federal agency would have to make in order to figure out what they were going to do, uh, whether they're going to investigate or not. And guess what? Apparently, the feds either had this already. We haven't. I don't believe that Monique has received a thank you message from the U.S. attorney for assembling all this for. But this is information that the U.S. attorney had way more ability to garner than we did, because at Monique's campaign, she just went and captured this information from news reports, mostly from the Willamette Week, Sophie Peel, and a investigative blogger by the name of Jeff Eager, as well as a few other reports and public information. And when you go down this, it's just like, it looks like something that somebody put together and said, this is the statement we need in order to have I don't know, an investigation initiated, a subpoena. You would provide something like this as a chronology
Yeah.
for a judge to issue a subpoena, or for a grand jury to be convened. It would be that kind of information. And so Monique was on to something, and and she's also said that she believes that Val Hoyle has disqualified herself from public service based on just what we know now. And now the feds are going to go dig in more. So
Which
this
is
is
all the more reason why we've got to help Monique get elected. You cannot wait for something with this investigation. Let's say the Democrats start throwing a whole bunch of money her way, which I don't know why they would, except for it's a vote, right? Let me tell you, it's all about the vote. It's not about the person that's in the position. It's about the vote and what they can get out of them while they're in office. And so why we need to help Monique get elected, so the Republicans can get one more vote in the House, you
yeah.
know?
Yep. The House of Representatives may come down to this seat, knowing that we only have a 2 or 3 seat margin right now. And you can see what that does on a regular basis, is that it complicates things when you're trying to get everybody on the same page and do important things to fight back against what Joe Biden has been doing to the country, as well as Chuck Schumer, but also maybe fix some of the problems that have been made really bad by what's been going on in DC. And we're going to talk about some
But
of those problems
but
tonight.
let me finish here just a second, because what I said, I don't want somebody taking it the wrong way with what I said, because we don't want Val Hoyle getting reelected. Then an investigation comes out. She has to step down. Well, she would be replaced by a Democrat. More, it could very well be. And so this is why it's better to have a Republican in this, and let's just help Monique get elected,
Yeah,
and have a Republican in the seat. And so I just wanted to clarify what my thought process was there.
no, that's good. It's not just enough for a Democrat to be having these problems. We have to offer our constructive alternative. And Monique Despain, she's a retired U.S. Air Force colonel, a mother of twin boys, and she's a public policy advocate. She's been working for Kevin Mannix, who spent his time suing Kate Brown with her help to stop all those terrible clemencies where felons are being released out onto the streets, and families of the victims were finding out in the news that this felon was out on the streets. She's been part of this effort to fight back against that, and she's a fighter. And you know what? The fact that she's called out Val Hoyle and put out this message and sent this letter to the U.S. attorney, that's action. That's not just sitting back and complaining about it. That's taking action,
Absolutely.
and it produced a result, and that's leadership. And that's what we could have as an alternative to what we have now in Val Hoyle, which is corruption and
Yes.
a rubber stamp for the Biden administration. So everybody,
Yes.
please take a look at that, because you need to share this information. And of course, I shared the press release from the website there, where you can also see up on the right hand top corner of the screen, donate. And that's how, if you're not in the district, that's how you get to vote. You get to vote by making sure that they can get those votes out when they need to later and get the word out about this too.
Yeah, we need to help other Republicans, strong Republicans in other areas across our state to get elected. This is not just our own district that we have to worry about. It truly is statewide. More that we can send to DC, the better. That's in Republicans to help them. So yeah.
Well, and that's an important thing to mention about making sure that we control the House of Representatives and have a margin of votes in that is sufficient to actually govern. And by the way, even if we have a Republican president elected, you need to have the House of Representatives there to support, because look what happened when Nancy Pelosi got in charge of the House of Representatives.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so
Oh yeah.
that's what we can actually prevent from happening, even if a Republican president is elected.
Well, and to speak to that even further is a very good segue into the very good news of the impeachment of Mayorkas. It was by one vote.
It was one vote.
Every vote counts, and it was by one vote. And I think that is great news. They got it done. It's unfortunately he won't be convicted, I don't think, in the Senate, but it's I think I heard it's only the second or third time that a
public official.
it's not it's the position has been impeached.
Yeah. Well, and I think that it's a historic thing because, normally you hear about impeachments involving presidents, but political appointees who are subject to Senate confirmation also are subject to impeachment and can be removed by the Senate, which is the same body that confirmed them. So, but this means that not only is there public attention focused on this, and this Secretary Mayorkas has been called out for what he has done and failed to do, and the lies he's told, but also, and very importantly, this will result in a trial in the Senate. Apparently, that is a requirement. So once the House does this, this moves to the Senate, and you will have competing sides. Mayorkas will have his lawyers representing him. There will be House managers who will be essentially the prosecutors that will go and prosecute this. And all this information will be brought to light in front of the Senate, which must sit there silently as, in effect, a jury of 100 that will determine whether or not they will convict or not. And I believe they need 67 votes or 2/3 to do that. But it's really important because we wouldn't be even talking about this if we didn't have enough Republican members of Congress. And I wish some Democrats actually had the courage, because some of them are very unhappy with the border. A handful of them, I think maybe a dozen of them, are really unhappy with the policy. But they haven't brought themselves yet to assign blame to the person who's been executing this policy and then lying about it. And that's really the key, right? Alejandro Mayorkas has repeatedly said that the border is secure. And it's the complete opposite of the truth. And he knows the truth. And so if you knowingly state a falsehood, that's a lie. If you do it in front of Congress and you're sworn in, and you're sworn to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and you lie, that's perjury. And when people say, oh, this is a high crime or misdemeanor, it's more than just incompetence. This is a guy who went and lied to Congress about it when Congress was trying to get to the truth of what was actually occurring and then hold him accountable.
On Sunday, I heard today, I was watching Newsmax as I was making dinner earlier, that he had actually gone on some legacy media, probably MSNBC or something. I don't know where he was. And he was speaking about this is the problem that we have is not in our control. It's like, so I want to see how the Dems spin this and the Senate that this is not in their control when we all know that it is. We had the border secure when the Biden administration came into office. The crossings were so low, so few, and state remained in Mexico. And it was the first day there was all of the executive orders, and with the stroke of a pen, there went what we had. And
Yep.
so Mayorkas is absolutely trying to gaslight the American people. And there, unfortunately, are going to be some that he is gaslighting. But how do these Democrats, that their constituents they have to try to defend keeping him in office, and their constituents are not happy with the border at all.
No, and it's interesting because I just saw some information saying that that the border security has actually gone from being what was a sort of a second tier issue that people mostly cared about just in certain states to a number one issue across the country. And it's not a number one issue because of delays in passing comprehensive immigration reform, because that's been going on for 15 years.
Yeah.
It's because of the hell that the Biden administration has unleashed at the border. And what's interesting about what you just mentioned about how he's been gaslighting Congress, Republicans, the American people, everybody, is that the White House has actually admitted just 2 days ago that the president already has the power to curb this migration and to close the border. He already has it. So him, sitting around and saying that there's nothing for him to do, he has to wait for Congress to pass laws, is to ignore the fact that, in fact, the laws already exist. The executive orders that were in place when he came into office that he reversed, I think it's 50 plus of these executive orders. He abolished the Remain in Mexico policy, which actually conformed to international law and treaty that people can apply for asylum, but they have to stay in the closest safe harbor country to the United States to wait for their the decision.
Yeah.
And so that was Remain in Mexico. What happened with that, of course, is that a lot of people, they weren't coming up because of safety or political asylum. They were coming up because they just want to see if they can get a job, and make some money and just move to the United States. But what the Biden administration has been doing is they've been doing catch and release. They abolished that program. They then said, okay, if you come in, we will just process you, and we'll give you a court date. And then you have to come back on that date, years from now.
10 years from now or more.
And then these people just go and they get the help of a bunch of non-governmental organizations, nonprofits that are being paid by the government to transport them and disperse them throughout the country. And those people never return. They even take off the device that's supposed to track them as to where they're living so that the federal government can be aware of where these people are. And they really don't know who they are. No. So the White House has actually admitted this, but Mayorkas seems to be impervious to this, because he was asked about the failed impeachment vote by a Fox News reporter just a few days ago, and they cut off the question. They wouldn't allow Mayorkas to respond, to answer. And then on top of that, Mayorkas actually said something outrageous. He said that Americans killed by illegal aliens, that situation should not be politicized.
Goodness, the border should just be shut. We all, we have the laws on the books, and they should be adhered to, quite frankly.
Well, and this guy, I don't know, the more you see his face, the more you just really say, oh my God, how do we have somebody like this running the government? But now he's the
guy who wrote the DACA program, Kevin.
Yeah, I know.
Mayorkas, so that says it all right there. This is who wants everybody in here, bring them all in, open the borders to the world, because that's what's coming across. What is alarming is how many illegals? I was reading about today some headlines of how many illegals. Like today, 29 military age single Chinese men were coming across the border. What are all of these Chinese coming in? You know, they're not coming here for tech jobs.
No. No, they
No.
are not. They're not coming for tech jobs, and they're actually there are a lot of gang members and other
Yeah.
criminals embedded in these groups of migrants. Not only are there criminals involved with transporting migrants to the border, but then they also sneak in. They're called gotaways.
Yeah.
And they don't actually know how many of them there are. They've estimated it somewhere on the order of 1.7 million since Biden took office in January of 2021.
Of just gotaways.
Of just gotaways.
Yeah. Just
And
gotaways.
and those are people that are bringing fentanyl and meth, smuggling that into the country, which is laying waste to our cities, driving the homelessness crisis, driving the crime wave, all the things that are really ruining cities and ruining people's standard of living, and causing enormous sums of money to be spent to deal with all of this. And that's the result of what's happening at this border. I think it's worth mentioning that there are people that are starting to react to this and bringing personal stories to light. There's a TV show called Pawn Stars with Rick
Yeah.
Harrison, and he ripped politicians over the fentanyl crisis. His son recently died, actually, from what turned out to be a fentanyl overdose. And I mean, obviously, our hearts go out to him. He's
Yeah.
crushed by this, but it's also brought to light that we're letting this happen by allowing this to come across the southern border, and the person who's responsible for this was just impeached. And actually, it doesn't stop there, because an influential lawmaker in the House Republican caucus said that the buck stops with Joe Biden. He's Representative Jim Banks, Republican from Indiana. And he said in an interview this afternoon, he says, "I hope we'll impeach Mayorkas tonight," which they did. And he said, "The buck stops with Joe Biden. All the reasons you're impeaching Secretary Mayorkas are doubly important to impeaching Joe Biden." So this might be the next step. Joe Biden seems to have other reasons to be impeached potentially, and there's new ones every day. But
Hey, I like what Pat has just wrote here. Democrats DACA is Democrats against citizens of America. I like that, Pat. DACA, no kidding.
that's very clever. That's very
It
clever.
is very clever. First I heard of that one.
So here's another issue where we come back to the importance of controlling Congress. A lot of us are paying close attention to the presidential race. I think it's becoming pretty clear who the nominee is going to be, and that's shaping up. But there's the whole battlefield, and on this battlefield is Congress. And here's something that wouldn't be happening at all if it weren't for the fact that we actually control Congress by this thin margin.
Absolutely.
James Comer, who is the House Oversight Committee chairman, who's in conjunction with Jim Jordan, the House Judiciary Committee chairman. Comer called out today that this U.S. business executive who partnered with Hunter and James Biden is Joe Biden's brother, and Hunter Biden, as we know, is his infamous son. They partnered on a deal involving a Chinese energy firm, and this business executive, his name is Tony Bobulinski. He's the former head of a company called Sinohawk, and during a transcribed interview in the House impeachment inquiry, which is being overseen by Comer, he's the latest to contradict President Biden's claim that he wasn't involved in the family's foreign business. Bobulinski confirmed that he met with Joe Biden on more than one occasion and discussed business. Joe Biden knew he was going to in business with Hunter and James Biden, his brother, and he knew that business was selling the Biden brand, which of course didn't involve performing any other service than influence peddling and and manipulating the federal government to assist these companies. Tony Bobulinski said under oath today that the business the Bidens are engaged in was selling the Biden brand. They were influence peddling, unquote. So even more information has been accumulated. And Comer said the conflict between the testimony of family, friends, and associates and the president's own claims have grown so large that it has become a major focus of the impeachment inquiry. He said, remember, Biden, said numerous times he never met with any of them. He's even said he didn't know that Hunter was on the board of Burisma for a long time. He said which is, I mean, this is lie after lie after lie after lie, Comer said.
Well,
Bobulinski got cross-examined by Democrats. He was unshakable in his testimony, providing facts the Democrats did not want to hear on that committee, because Republicans actually let Democrats participate and ask questions on these committees, which is something Nancy Pelosi didn't do. And the Democrats
the Republicans have lawful committees, not unlawful committees.
That's right. We help follow a due process.
Yes.
And we actually make sure that there's a system where even if you're in the majority, the minority gets to participate, speak, ask questions, make statements. And apparently Bobulinski, the Democrats yelled at him. They cut him off. They belittled him. They threatened him. And Comer said it's behavior I've never seen before like this. And he said, we will soon release the transcript to provide the American people with transparency about Joe Biden's involvement in his family's shady schemes and Democrats' effort to smear Mr. Bobulinski for blowing the whistle. So this is just another step in the direction of holding President Biden accountable, who seems to have been plagued with numerous issues lately.
But the thing about the Bobulinski information, 4 years ago, he brought information to the FBI.
He did.
He willfully, all on his own, brought information, brought phone records, brought a couple of telephones, actually, that had all the records in them. And nobody ever looked at it. He brought it to many agencies, many people in government, and nothing happened. But something that I heard today is his testimony today. When you have evidence, you have to corroborate the evidence, right? And today he provided the evidence that corroborates everything else, not everything else, but many things that they have as a reason to impeach Biden and to prove this pay-to-play influence peddling that the Biden family has been doing. So it's like it couldn't happen soon enough, right? Bringing all of this together, and I'm glad that they having the hearing. But it does not surprise me. I've seen the attack of the Democrats, because I have seen that before in I watch committee hearings when I can, and it is appalling the level that they are willing to stoop to in attacking witnesses. It really is just appalling. These to me, it shouldn't be like that. It should just be ask your questions. You don't have to get into attacks and whatnot. And but that they're fighting for the globalist movement, so there are no holes barred.
And they're in a crazy form of denial. There was something fascinating that I got to talk to Dave Hugonell about yesterday, which is that Representative Dan Goldman, who's a congressman from New York, he defended President Biden on his occasional confusion regarding world leaders, occasional, which is literally daily now.
Right.
Because they said because Joe Biden actually said last week that he had spoken with French President Mitterrand.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Died in 1996.
Yeah, he doesn't know who he's speaking to or where he's at, quite frankly.
And Dan Goldman said, well, the reason why he is having this confusion isn't because he's senile. It's because he's so experienced. It's just another sign he's so experienced.
His file cabinet's so full, it's just spilling out.
Yeah. It's overflowing. It's overflowing with gibberish and confusion. I don't really care what the reason is in the end. I know that if this is the guy in charge of like 5,000 nuclear weapons on our
Oh
national
my
security,
word.
and he can't even complete sentences and is unable to remember when he was vice president.
Right.
He
Right.
can't remember when his son passed away. He keeps saying his son was killed in Iraq, which is complete
Yeah,
falsehood. He passed
it
away from
is.
cancer 4 years later after being elected, I think, Attorney General of Delaware. And it's very unfortunate what happened to his son, but that's an important thing that nearly everybody remembers. And when you get something like that big wrong
Yeah.
in an interview with the Department of Justice, maybe you shouldn't be running the nation's national security with a hair trigger notice. I don't know who's running the country actually, but I'm pretty sure it's not Joe Biden. And there's some problems with the country which require real leadership. And here's one. Dow Jones suffers worst day since March 2023 after inflation numbers came in high. The Labor Department's monthly consumer price index report revealed that prices increased by 0.3% in January, putting the annual inflation rate at 3.1%. And the reason why, of course, that was very difficult news for the markets is the markets were expecting that interest rates are going to start coming down, and that inflation has been tamed. And this just proved that it is not. Inflation came in higher than they expected. And what we have is a president who's actually been using what's called Bidenomics, a term that almost nobody wants to use anymore willingly, whether
Yeah.
they're Democrats or Republicans. Uh, that represents creating inflation by printing money to give it to all kinds of different groups, including people that are like cronies and so on that are feeding at the government trough. Biden has then managed to achieve a uh, a 39% approval rating on the economy, and on inflation, he's at 36.3%. That is super duper low. That is what they call a dead cat bounce almost. In the markets, they
Yeah.
refer to that. It's a dead cat bounce because those are the people who would approve of him. Even if he was like literally torching the White House and burning it to the ground and shooting people in the streets personally, they'd be like, yeah, yeah, that's you can't go much lower than the mid 30s on this stuff, and the markets are concerned. And I think we're seeing an economy that needs a steady hand at the wheel who actually can answer questions and make decisions and inspire the American people to have faith
And
and
actually knows how to grow an economy.
yeah.
Unleash free market and let it grow, because man, it'll take off.
Well, when your business before, when you weren't in office, was selling the name brand of influence peddling of your family name, and the money was coming from places like China and Ukraine, I guess you don't know much about the real economy because that's not how the real economy works. It's like if
No.
Sonny has a business and it doesn't make enough money, she doesn't just say, "Well, I'll just go and sell the Danforth brand and go get somebody to go send me some checks from China and Ukraine and it's all good." That's not how it works for the rest of us.
No, no, it isn't. No, it isn't. And I'll tell you, I do wonder. It's not just our economy. We've talked on the program here, not you and I necessarily, but we've talked on the program about China's economy is in a major free fall. There are so much bankruptcies going on over there, and the yen is falling badly, and then in Japan it's falling badly to the dollar, and there's a lot going on in the world. It isn't just us, but that report today definitely hit the markets.
Yeah,
Maybe.
so what's happening in China right now is this company called Evergrande, which is the either the first or second largest property developer in the world, not just in China. And then the second largest one, along with it, are both going into not just bankruptcy, they're not just reorganizing, they're liquidating,
They
which
are.
means
It's the top three in China. This is billions of dollars. Billions
oh,
of dollars. This is not a
five
little,
$500 billion.
yeah,
It's more debt than the Dow
half a
Jones.
trillion. Half a trillion.
Yeah, it's more debt than the Dow Jones 30 industrial companies have in the form of debt combined in the United States, which we're a larger economy, and those are the largest companies. And yet they don't have 30 of them don't have anywhere close to the amount of debt that just three do that are
Yeah,
all liquidating in China. And the problem is all the banks that lent them this money, they are all insolvent. So the
yeah,
banking system as a whole is becoming insolvent. And the only thing people were allowed to invest in China was real estate. They couldn't buy gold. They can't invest in certificates of deposit. They can't go and buy stocks or bonds. They can't buy anything. So all the nest egg for everyone was to buy a piece of property and
yeah.
expect it to appreciate in value. And all of those people are basically losing their butts. They are finding out that what they had is worth zero. And as a result, they are taking every penny they make now and
Mhm.
sticking it under a mattress and not
Yeah.
spending it, which means that China as an economy is collapsing into deflation. So their
It's
economy,
retracting seriously.
that's right. And there's three parts of their economy. There's the property sector, which is insolvent and liquidating. It's collapsed. There's four parts, I should say. There's the consumer spending side of it, which they can't count on now. They're nothing like the United States. We have about a 70% of our economy is driven by consumer spending, and theirs is like in the 20% range and falling. So two sectors are collapsed or too small and then they have the industrial production export sector, and foreign direct investment in China in the last year has gone from $100 billion to 10. It's dropped by 90%.
Wow.
Everybody is trying to get out because everybody who is investing is starting to feel like they're going to lose everything.
Hmm.
And then there's the government of China. And the government of China is literally going around. President Xi has outlawed anybody in China saying that there's anything wrong. If you print on a website there's something wrong with the economy, it's removed and they send people to your door to go and have a talk with you about how you might disappear soon. And
You
so
have to go to re-education camp, I
that's
think.
right.
Yeah.
And
And I'll tell you, talk about censorship. That is what is happening there. They don't want any news out there of what is going on. They don't want people telling truthfully what is happening to them in China and how this is affecting their lives.
and
It's
it's and it's
news
not working.
blackout.
It's not working because consumers won't spend. Businesses are going out of business, so you can't hide that. They were trying to hide it for a while by printing money and just shoving it into the banking system, and then the banking system was just shoving it into these real estate companies. But now they can't do it anymore, and their stock
Yeah.
market has collapsed by like 50%. Now, here's the problem: China's is the second largest economy in the world, and it is an economy that is the driver of many other economies in the world
Yes.
too, and it's not insignificant for ours as a market. So the problem is, if they collapse, they start to drag the rest of the world economy down with them. And I don't know what Biden's going to do. Maybe they think that he is ready to give them a bailout. But if I look at what's happening with foreign aid here in the United States right now, that would be one of the single most unpopular ideas that anyone could ever imagine. Because
Absolutely.
because
I think
China
the
can't
American people are going, you know what? Let's close our border. We're not even taking care of our own country and sending I'm so glad the bill that speaker has said the bill for aid to Ukraine and is dead, and Ukraine and Israel. There was a third one.
Taiwan.
Thank you. Taiwan, is dead. And now, unfortunately, I know Israel is needing military, but I heard a report that they haven't even received in the what has already been promised them in armament. So, they don't need more. And so I think that would be DOA, something calling for a bailout of China. Heavenly days.
Well, that's what happens when you have a president, old Scranton Joe, that's actually in charge. If he promises something, that means absolutely nothing to other
Yeah.
countries in the world because he's not running the US government and
No.
he apparently lacks the ability to influence the American people to back or support a policy. And so the Senate has actually passed a foreign aid package for those three countries, a $95.3 billion aid package. And I guess it's now it's been sent over to the House, but the House is like, we're not passing anything unless there are the border security provisions that we
Yeah.
want. So I think they should stand firm on that.
I do too.
And I know that there are things important to our national security that take place outside of our borders. But I don't think the blank checks, the stuff with no strings attached, should happen anymore. We have to put that into the past. I heard President Trump actually suggest something really smart just a couple days ago. He said it should be a loan. You can make
I like that. I heard that too.
I think it's quite an idea. And in fact, the purpose of that would be to say, we're helping you out now, but when you get rich, because we saved your butts,
right,
then you can pay it back later. And he said, and you can even make it with like no interest. You could make it with an infinite term to pay it back. You could come up with all kinds of things, but stop giving it away and stop giving it to countries that decide later after you've helped them to become your enemy.
Absolutely.
And I thought
Absolutely.
that's brilliant, and that's how it should be. And I believe that this is actually where, if President Trump is saying it today, it'll be conventional wisdom in a couple of years.
Yes.
And that's true no matter who's president, by the way, because that's what's happened with a lot of other things about China, about the border, that's now become conventional wisdom, that once it was just this crazy guy who was president saying it, who just turned out to be prescient, as they say.
And so, did you hear that Trump on Truth Social, I saw, he said, let's have a tiered NATO. Because the left's narrative is, oh, he wants to pull out of NATO and destroy NATO. And he says, no, maybe we should have tiered membership in NATO for those countries that can't pay. I'll tell you, the man is a very smart businessman, and we need to implement smart policies that are looking out for Americans' interests while still helping those that need help, other nations that need help. But first, you have to put your own mask on and save yourself before you can help anyone else. So I'm liking the loan deal and potentially tiered membership in NATO.
Yeah, if you decide that you don't want to do the full job thing you committed to, then you can go for the bargain basement package. That's right. And I mean, the way it's working with Ukraine right now, they're also getting they're getting the free trial NATO membership is what essentially they're getting right now.
Oh gosh.
But at some point, when you join an alliance, it is not just you just turn your pockets inside out and say, save me. You got to do your part. And that is actually going to be what everyone's going to say needs to happen. By the way, I just found a really good YouTube video that people should watch about China. It says China had 20 plates spinning. They're all crashing right now.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. It's an analysis by somebody who actually, it's CNBC. It's just a straight up business analysis of what's happening. It's not somebody who is talking about it in terms of political terms. And then, of course, I just posted the article, U.S. should be stupid no more. Trump calls for an end to no strings attached foreign aid. And that's describes the deal we just mentioned. But we really are not going to be able to leave it to the federal level to be stupid and hypocritical, because what's happening right now here in Oregon is fascinating as well. And there is a House Joint Resolution 201 where the Democrats want to push through a statewide property tax and use it to, they say, fund public safety, because apparently they've spent all the money on something they think is more important than public safety. But when I talk to people, number one job of state and local government, public safety. If you don't have that, then all the other stuff the government does, kind of a waste.
That's
Um,
right.
so, but they've said that they have to have this in order to fund public safety. And the problem with property taxes is that they are very, very hard on people that might happen to own a property that appreciated in value, but then over time, uh, uh, you end up having to pay a property tax related to the value of that property, even though you might be on fixed income at that point. You might be retired. People who own a home but are not do not have high incomes find it very difficult to pay this.
Yeah.
And so House Joint Resolution described by the Oregon Catalyst here is an awful statewide property tax to bail out politicians of the crime wave that they created. And there's a hilarious meme in here that shows the guy from Despicable Me just talking about, here's what my plan is: cut prison time for theft, defund police, release 1,000 inmates early, make drugs illegal, cause a crime wave, raise property taxes for public safety. Because the answer to every crisis that Democrats create by bad policies is more government and more taxes.
Yes. And so tonight is tonight going to be the deadline to submit testimony on that, Kevin? I've done mine already, but I don't know what the cutoff time is. Maybe midnight tonight. I'm not sure.
So they had a hearing today
Yep.
at 1 p.m. And of course, if you wanted to testify, you had to show up then. But I believe you have up to 48 hours I'm just clicking through the things here because I want to make sure everybody has the information they need. Usually have 48 hours after the hearing to submit written testimony online. And I'm clicking right through to the page where you should be able to do that.
Yeah, so put the link in there because this is important to you don't have to say much, just say that you're opposing this. Just submit your testimony that you oppose it. And really, you don't have to berate the government. You don't have to cuss them out. It'd be better if you didn't. Just be respectful and say that you oppose this tax because they need to hear from us, the citizens of Oregon.
They do. And it's an awful idea. And they have more awful ideas than this that they want to do. But this one's particularly bad because also Oregonians passed limitations, Measure 5 and Measure 50 back in the 90s, which limited the maximum property tax rate that you could be assessed. And it also limited, I believe it related to the increase in, and put a ceiling on the assessment value. And so it made it so that they couldn't go and then just soak people locally at the local level with property taxes, which most of services at the county, city, and other smaller districts, Parks and Rec and water are paid through property taxes, right? Well, they put a limit on it, so they couldn't soak you to death on that. This gets around that. As a statewide property tax, it would have no limit. And it'll start at a certain percentage, but you know what happens to those things. And you know what? The other thing I predict is if it did pass, and by the way, it would go to the ballot for the people to vote on. But if it did go to the ballot and got passed into law, I guarantee you that the Democrats will spend almost none of it on public safety.
100%. I agree with you. But they have another bill that they're working on. I don't remember the number, that is to cap the property tax for senior citizens. Now, that's a good bill, quite frankly. When you're on a fixed income, you've retired, and you're on a fixed income, I think that's a good thing, is doing that, putting a cap on our property taxes to help out senior citizens.
Yeah, because they can't go out and get a second job to go and pay for the privilege of continuing to live in the home that they already own after decades and decades. And and so that's why it's particularly egregious. But the Democrats figure they will just take public safety as something that they don't want you to have. It's another thing they take hostage in exchange for, well, now if you just pass this tax, we'll give you public safety, which is
Yeah,
Lucy with
right.
the football, right? It's Lucy with
Right.
the football.
No,
It's like
no, no, no.
you just pass comprehensive immigration reform, we'll give you border security. Trust me,
Right, right.
you know.
We promise not.
That's right. They're like laughing as soon as they get away from the
Oh
camera.
my
They're like, these
gosh.
idiots. Well, and then here's the other thing that we saw. Measure 110 was passed in order to make sure that they could fund drug treatment and recovery using a tax on cannabis.
Yeah.
You got the tax on cannabis, you didn't get the drug treatment and recovery, and oh, you got a bonus. A decriminalization of hard drugs, which has engulfed our state and made us the laughing stock of the nation as people flee the cities where this has really just overwhelmed the system and produced a humanitarian crisis as well as crime wave. It's literally rezoned our cities into drug addiction encampments and made our already depleted public safety resources and police in particular unable to cope with it. And then they've told them you can't do anything anyway, like you can't arrest anybody. So this is what they're doing in Salem right now is they are debating a couple of things. One, a bill that would make the use of drugs on public transportation a Class A misdemeanor, which is actually the misdemeanor that you could get a year's worth in jail, and you would be required to go into drug treatment in order to get your prison time deferred. The Democrats don't want to do this kind of stuff, but Representative Jeff Helfrich, he's the leader of the House Republicans, and he said he thinks that this is making progress because it's been endorsed by TriMet, it's been endorsed by all of the police organizations, and Democrats keep telling us that a Class A misdemeanor is too harsh. Well, go ride the Mac late at night in Portland and have that experience. And by the way, think of all
What?
the hundreds of millions, even billions of dollars that were wasted on the system that nobody wants to use because they have to suffer through fentanyl smoke with their children.
Well, I'll tell you, this past Sunday, I think it was I think it was this Sunday on Your Voice, Your Vote. They had on the Senate majority leader talking about this, and they're saying actually two people I think were on there. Might have been the House majority leader and the Senate majority leader, and we're talking about, well, we really want it to be a Class 3 or C misdemeanor, and it's basically just a ticket. But that, and I'm thinking, are you kidding me? And so I do watch Your Voice, Your Vote on K2 on Sunday mornings because I always get to see something of what's going on that might not to bring more awareness to myself, right?
Well,
And
Steve Dunn is a good host, and he asks real questions, and he gets to
yeah.
the truth, and he's fair to Republicans as well.
Yeah, he is. And so he had also then the House on side as well. And they were talking about it. No, we need to up this a little bit more. It needs to be just a little bit more than write a ticket here. And so I hope that is gaining momentum and gaining support.
Well, and so then that's Measure 110 is the same debate about a Class A versus a Class C. Republicans want a Class A misdemeanor and they also want it so that you actually have to go into treatment.
Yeah.
You have to accept that in order to have your prison time deferred, and then perhaps also get out of serving any prison time whatsoever by going into recovering and staying that way. Class C misdemeanor is 30 days in jail, and you don't even actually get fully booked and processed. They just say you could optionally go and get drug treatment, and we won't even actually complete the process of convicting
Wow.
you of that crime and sending you to jail. And they call that, there's deferment, and then the other one is, I forget, deception or something. I don't know. It's another dumb word that
That's
they've
about right,
invented.
Kevin. That sounds
Yeah.
about right. Some
So
actual action or deception.
yes,
Yeah. I
deception.
just wish they would repeal the whole darn thing and let's go back to the way it was. But if we're going to have the legislators not, I mean, why don't they just refer it back to the people? I wish they
Well,
would refer it back to the people so the people can say, you know what, this is not working for us.
I think that is actually the only reason why Democrats are considering this right now. They don't really care about the
Right.
cries of harm that have occurred in our cities and the damage to people, because they're such believers in this system that just
Yeah.
needs more time and more money. Infinite amounts of money goes to their cronies that just are held to no account for actually delivering results. That's why we don't have drug treatment and recovery, despite.
Yeah.
But I think that they are forced to do it because the people will take it out of the hands of the legislators and take matters into their own hands themselves with the ballot box. That's the reason why they feel compelled to do it.
Yeah.
It remains to be. I think it's just window dressing that they're trying to engage in, and so now
Yeah.
we have to really see what we can accomplish next.
Hey
Um,
Kevin, I'm going to be out of battery here very shortly. So
no problem, because we have reached the end of our stories for today. And even though there's probably an infinite number of stories that we could cover, but that pretty much covers it for tonight. And I really appreciate you jumping in here at the last minute. This worked really well, actually. Your picture's like right next to mine, and you look and sound great. So I really appreciate you jumping on tonight to be on the show with me, since the first time since November 3rd.
wow, that's a long time, Kevin, a long time. And I'll tell you, I'm going to have to get something in my car. I don't have one of those things to hold your phone in the car. And because I'm holding it in my hand, but it is working well. It's the first time we've ever done this on my phone. And it is working well, but my hand is cramped a little bit. So I'll get
Well,
something to
we don't want hand cramps to take you down. All right. We need.
no, no, and I'll make sure that I have my cord to plug it in next time too. But I'm glad I had enough battery to at least get through this because this takes a little bit.
Well, thank you for joining me here tonight, Sonny. I really appreciate it.
It's a
And
pleasure, and our prayers are with you, David, and for a complete recovery. And we will have him back in no time. I pray. I pray. And Kevin, it's a joy to be with you, and nice to see you again.
nice to see you as well. And thank you to everyone, all of our super fans and everybody who are watching us here tonight. And you guys know how to share this show. There's just a lot of folks that need to hear this. They might need a laugh. They might just need to be informed. But one thing's for sure, they don't have to be captives anymore, because we're here to make sure that we speak to you and make sure that you know what's happening. And then actually we lay out the truth of what you need to think about it and what you can do about it. Make sure you get your testimony in for House Joint Resolution 201 within the next less than 48 hours, probably 40 hours now, and let them know. Let's put a stop to it. And we will see everybody tomorrow night on the next episode of the Captive Audience. It'll be you and Don, right,
It
Sonny?
will be. Yep. We'll see.